What do you do when overnight a global pandemic plunges the organization you lead into uncertainty? Welcome to The Pivot. Hi, everybody. Jen DeVore here, Civic Impact Manager at the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. Welcome to The Pivot, our new web series highlighting regional leaders talking about how they're pivoting in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Very excited for my next guest today, Michelle Freeman, CEO of Witty and co-organizer of Amplify Philly, which is Philadelphia's initiative to have a strong presence at the global music festival South by Southwest, which was supposed to take place last month, but was canceled because of this pandemic. And so we're going to talk to her today about how she really went from 0 to 60 with her team on pivoting something that she's been planning for months, which was a very physical in-person event. So I'm going to bring Michelle on now if you want to turn your camera on.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, Michelle. Hi. Thank you so much for being on the show today. First, let me just ask you, how are you doing with everything that's going on?
I'm hanging in there. I mean, as a small business owner, it's been a little bit uncertain and nerve-wracking, but luckily we do have a small team that's really tight. So everybody's been working together, supporting each other, and we're just sort of navigating it really day by day, and kind of reflecting week by week to try to make, some predictions of what we think might happen in the future.
Absolutely. And, full disclosure to our audience, this summer I spent some time working with Witty as a consultant. So I know that Michelle's leadership has really kicked into high gear, and the team that you work with is fantastic. So I think that's great that you guys are able to, try to navigate this together. So let's talk about, you do a lot, right? So you do Witty and you do Amplify Philly. Do you want to just quickly tell us about each of them?
Sure. Yep. So Witty is a civic-focused, marketing and events, and I can talk a little bit about sort of even our own pivot before COVID, really looking at what we do as experiences and engagement that really gets to the heart of the work that we do, which I think with that sort of vocabulary, sort of, change, mindset change with our business has definitely helped me right now in this time, thinking about how we navigate the future of our work. But yeah, we primarily work with city departments, nonprofits, some universities. We work with a couple corporations. So really Philly focused. And it's a little tough because most of our work is anchored in in-person gatherings, which, as you mentioned, Amplify Philly, being, one of the major activities of what Amplify Philly does, is being at South by Southwest. That's how the initiative started 5 years ago, really trying to make space at South by Southwest to set a stage for Greater Philadelphia to really shine across sectors, bringing lots of different leaders and artists, musicians, people from all sectors coming together to really showcase Philly on a global stage at South by Southwest. And that initiative is co-led by Witty and Rec Philly. We also have representation from Philly startup leaders on our board. So Dave Silver from Rec Philly and Kiara Smalls from Philly startup leaders.
Great. Yeah, no, it's an awesome team. And for folks at home that maybe aren't familiar with South by Southwest, because we'll be talking a lot about Amplify's connection to that festival, do you want to just say what that is and maybe just talk about the audience that's there and why it's so important?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say, it's a mix. So there's three main focuses of South by Southwest. It's really broken up into film, music, and interactive. The interactive piece is the piece that's a little more business focused. You're seeing, companies introducing new technologies, new products. I think some of the misnomer is that it's just for startups or tech companies, and that's not the case anymore as the years have gone on. It's really expanded to include things like healthcare, urban planning, and truly, really across all sectors. And Jen, you know this from helping us develop the programming, that was very much reflected in in what we had planned to host during the days we were down there. So I'd say because the sort of focus of South by Southwest is so broad, you see a lot of diversity in the attendance, but I'd say there's like all these sort of granular breakdown of demographics. Probably skews a little younger when you're looking at the music part. But yeah, during this interactive part, which is the part we focus on, we're seeing lots of business leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, attending. So it's really great for I'd say both B2B and also for companies that are looking to broaden or connect with consumer base.
Excellent. So just to recap, so it's Witty Gritty is your marketing and events firm that does community engagement with partners around the region. Amplify Philly is the nonprofit that you co-founded with Rec Philly in partnership with Philly startup leaders to kind of amplify, if you will, Philadelphia's presence at different spaces internationally. And South by Southwest is one of the places that Amplify Philly engages that mission. And that was supposed to take place last month. And of course, it got canceled. It actually got canceled, I think, just a few days before the first leg of the festival was supposed to start. So, I mean, that's a major challenge. That's one that I'm sure many people that either are event planners or were planning on having an event have faced. When did you first start to realize that was a possibility, that South by Southwest might be canceled?
It happened, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks out. We weren't even really thinking about it till the week before the festival was supposed to happen. In some way it was fortunate to have a shorter runway to really to have to deal with that, just because it would have felt a little bit nebulous to keep planning towards something if it had been over a few weeks or something like that. It really felt like a light switch. It was that first week of March. The thing I kept kind of telling some people that week was, like, literally on that Monday, I was having check-in calls, like regular standing check-in calls about Amplify Philly. It was not even brought up at all, on that Monday. That Tuesday, that next day, we started seeing large companies pull out of South by Southwest, and that's when it started to hit us that we might have to alter plans and this thing might get canceled. If you really unpack it, there was a lot to unpack in the fact that South by Southwest really tried to explore every single option to make it happen in a safe way, in partnership with the city of Austin and public health officials. It's a huge hit, not just for the organization and anybody who's involved as an organizer, but for the local economy in Austin as well. So the city also wanted to make sure that they were doing what was safe for their community, but also saw how this would have a long-term, devastation on their local economy. So anyway, there was a lot of news we were following that week, and that it was those sort of 4 days. It was interesting. It happened so fast. Like that Wednesday of that week, South by Southwest had an official press conference confirming that it was still going to start that following Monday. By Friday at 4, it was canceled.
Wow. That seems like a quick turnaround, especially when you start to hear like reassuring messaging and then it just changes like that. What was your experience like? How were you processing this information as someone that is a leader? You have a team, and not only a team that you're accountable to, but I imagine there's tons of other partners involved in this. So maybe you could talk a little bit about who those partners are and how you started to process this information and start to break down how to handle each stakeholder.
Sure. I mean, we are super, super fortunate that our sponsors are not just sponsors who are looking for deliverables, but they really truly are partners. So that really helped us. And I think during this sort of weird moment where we had to navigate this, it really showed how much of a community we really have gathered with Amplify Philly, and also, like, obviously a reflection and extension of Philly, being such a great community. So our sponsors made it so easy to work through this because they were super responsive and supportive to us. I'd say the city of Philadelphia was one of our biggest partners in all of this, especially that week that we were dealing with all this. We were in lockstep together, and were, just, had each other's back, and we were kind of looking at the city to say, if they make any changes, we'll make those changes, and vice versa. So I'd say they're definitely a big partner that really stepped up, and we felt super supported because of them as well, especially during that week when we were trying to navigate what was going to happen.
That's great. And so you are now at the point where it's, you suspect that it could be canceled. I'm sure that feeling of uncertainty started to snowball. They cancel it. Like, what did you do? Like, what was your first reaction? And then what were some of the more like short-term, long-term things?
Sure. I mean, that week I was telling my team we have to keep planning as if we're going, just in case. And then we had it in the back of our head that we had to start thinking about what financial hit we might take, how we need to communicate with the appropriate parties, with the news. And as soon as, the city of Austin announced that they were doing a press conference on South by Southwest on Friday at 4, we sort of suspected that they were going to cancel it. So we just took, a couple hours, jumped on the phone with Rec Philly, and came up with a plan. Earlier that week, I think we issued a statement already, which helped us because we already had the communication channels in place. Earlier that week, we issued a statement that that did notify people that we were planning on going down there still, and we would let them know if anything changed. So we did have some of those things in place already. And then we quickly came up with a new statement that we issued out to all of our sponsors, anybody involved. So we had bands booked. We had, a whole, and this too, like a whole lineup of speakers that were going to speak as part of our programming, and lots of other partners and in-kind partners that were going to help us with what our setup was. And I guess I should add this for context too. So we talked about what South by Southwest is. Amplify Philly, what our main activity down there is to take over a 2-story venue for 3 days, and we pack it with programming from morning into late night. So what you see is panel discussions all day, other types of sponsor kind of setups and activities in this venue that it's called the house, in South by Southwest lingo. And then in the evening, you see sponsored happy hours and concerts. In the evening is when we showcase all of the music. So we notified everybody. We basically actually put out a very quick, thoughtful, but quick, hey, this is canceled, and bear with us. We will have more information for you early next week. And that gave us a little more time. So that Monday, we all went over to Rec Philly and had, a 2-hour meeting to kind of work out what we wanted to do. The main people we really wanted to focus on were our sponsors. They wrote us checks, they had plans, they invested in Amplify Philly as an opportunity for them to showcase their own businesses. And we came up with an alternate set of deliverables that we wanted to offer and put out to our sponsors to gauge what their feedback and interest would be. The toughest thing for this is obviously we can't recreate what South by Southwest is and that audience by offering things that are happening in Philly, but that's kind of the direction that we're going in right now.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about how, what the pivot is, right? So you have these sponsors and speakers and partners in place. I know just from shared experience, this is an event that takes probably like a year's worth of planning, right? To get to Austin in March every year. So what are you going to do now that the festival's canceled? And it's not even like it's canceled and you can do something else, because everything's so different now. We're in this new normal.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, I think on one hand, we're really fortunate because we did move to make Amplify Philly its own nonprofit organization at the end of last year. So that actually sets us up in a way that we've already been planning on moving Amplify Philly into a model where it would be more active and present year round. We don't know exactly what that looked like yet, because our plan was to really dig into that after we got back from Austin.
Yeah.
But that sets us up, I think, to offer and open up a lot more opportunity for what Amplify Philly will do and become, and how it will sort of support and serve this mission of finding opportunities to really, amplify Philly. So, like you said, things are really up in the air, but the plan right now to sort of, kind of try to recover and make up for what we would have done at South by Southwest is to probably host a small series of virtual events this summer. Maybe they turn into in-person events if they can. And also to partner, I know.
Yeah.
Also to partner with Philly Tech Week. So we've been talking with Philly technically a lot about partnering with them during what their updated and rescheduled plans are, because they were supposed to have Philly Tech Week in May, and that is now moving into a series of virtual events starting in May, and the plan is to have 5 days in September, from the 21st to the 25th, where Philly Tech Week in-person events can happen. So our ideal situation is that we are recreating some of what you would see at Amplify Philly House at Rec Philly for a day or two. Ideally, that we can do that in the fall, and then potentially also partner with BPHL to do some programming during their festival as well. So the good news is that a lot of our programming our programming is still relevant and adaptable to be able to still happen. So we're going to look at our lineup and reach out to some speakers, see which panels we can still host. And the good news is that the sort of official programming that had already been approved by South by Southwest, if we host that, whether in person or virtually, they will push out that programming for us through their channels. So we still have an opportunity to get connected to the South by Southwest audience in that way, even though we'll be doing our, our activities at home in Philly one way or another.
Yeah, I just think there's so many interesting things that you just touched on as far as your shift and your pivot. One, I think that partnering with Rec Philly, which you already are a partner with, but also technically for Philly Tech Week, like I think there's so much opportunity for collaboration right now, because we're all in this together, as we say, and we're all trying to navigate uncharted territory. And so I think that's so smart for you to work with technically, and for technically to work with Amplify in an opportunity that, like, who knows, like maybe this collaboration wouldn't have come about if we were in other circumstances. So I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that this show, The Pivot, wants to really emphasize to our viewers at home, is that this is an opportunity to partner up and to buddy up and try to explore new collaborations. And it sounds like through these different virtual events and micro meetups and smaller opportunities, you're still fulfilling your sponsorship duties, right? It sounds like your sponsors are still going to be promoted in a way that's appropriate to them. And I think a lot of people are looking for answers on how to handle sponsors, a lot of people in the event industry right now. So I think that's really great. Anything else you can speak to on the sponsorship end, like how those sponsorship agreements are being met and satisfied?
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, because things are so gray still, there's just such a gray area right now. yeah, it's the series of events that we'll host again virtually, hopefully in person later this year with those partnerships I mentioned. And then, we are reserving a part of sponsorship money to go toward sponsorship for South by Southwest 2021. Obviously, we know, like, if for some reason it doesn't happen, we'll have to pivot once again. And we understand that maybe some of our sponsors won't be able to come next year given everything that's happening. But I think the key thing for us is that, again, our sponsors are really partners. That's how we see them. And we know that things will come up case by case, but we're just doing what we can to keep communications lines open with our sponsors. As you can imagine, like, when we reached out when South by Southwest was canceled and addressed all that, really by the end of that week into the next week was when everything was shutting down. So everybody's lives are disrupted. I would guess that we were all of a sudden, Amplify Philly was probably at the bottom of the list for lots of our sponsors, given that they had a lot of other priorities to address. So I'd say we're just kind of coming up for air now. We're going to reach back out to our sponsors this week now that technically made their announcement for rescheduled plans. And we're going to take it from there. So we're going to take the next, this month and next month to start to kind of rebuild and reshape how we're going to deliver.
That's great. And it seems like these are lessons that you can take with you permanently into the work that you do. And now that Amplify Philly is its own nonprofit and has a mission broader than just South by Southwest, like, by default, like, you have to, do more with it. And I think that's great that this is giving you a launch pad to do so. Excellent. Well, Michelle, before we wrap up, like, what can people do to help this initiative? How can people participate, engage, and support Amplify Philly as you go through this pivot?
That's a great question. I mean, I'd say that, very simple action would be to follow us on your favorite social media platform, because that's where we'll, kind of better roll out information on ways people can get involved and help. We're always open to feedback and ideas, and we really want Amplify Philly to be something for the community that's shaped by the community. So as we are figuring out, what's next for us, we'll have lots of opportunities to involve other people. Again, Amplifying Philly is a fun thing that I think everybody can take part in. So we really do want to highlight what is so great about our city. Again, from art to music to the business side of things. So I'd just say follow us, stay tuned for updates, and we'll be able to know more, figure it out in the next couple months, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And at the end, we'll share all the social media handles so people at home can make sure that they're in tune with it. And then my last question is, what's your advice for someone that's watching this at home that's considering their own pivot? Like, what are some words of wisdom or lessons learned that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think, giving yourself enough space to really think about what you can do. I have a colleague that actually in the last few weeks, I feel like she's completely changed her business model so that she could offer all her services virtually. It's been really cool to sort of get updates from her. I think this is a time, as crappy as it is, to think about how to grow, expand, redirect some of the services you offer. I mean, this is coming from me, whose business is pretty much completely reliant on people gathering in person. But, I've been thinking about the last, few days, an event is an event, sure. But if we think about things as experiences, then we can really start to open up how we deliver sort of touch points to people, and they don't have to be in person. So it's easier to say that than to actually put it in practice. But I'd say this is a time to, like, take some risks, I guess. Like, what do you got to lose? Unfortunately, I could lose my business, in the next few months. So I should probably try to throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So if that's something that, people have space, in their life to explore with their own businesses or their own programs, then that's what I would say.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you talking about how you might lose your business while like smiling and sending positive messages to everybody. So, I mean, that is a really scary thing. And I know that so many people right now are thinking about that and experiencing that. But I think what you just said was really great and really inspirational to try to think the positive side and to experiment and take risks. I mean, what an incredible and strange time this is to be in. And I feel like that's a way, if you can, to make the most of it. So, well, great. So Michelle, thank you so much. I'm going to share your information. You can find Michelle and Witty Gritty and Amplify Philly on Instagram and Twitter. All the handles are down there. This is a recording, so you can hit pause to copy them if needed. And Michelle, thank you so much for being our guest. We wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to attend one of these events coming up in the future. And thank you to all our viewers at home for watching The Pivot. If you have a pivot of your own or know someone who is doing something really innovative in these trying times, please let us know. We'd love to feature you. You can email us at pivot@economyleague.org. You can also find us on Twitter and online at the same name. I'm Jen DeVore, Civic Impact Manager for the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. And thank you so much for watching The Pivot. Have a great day, everybody.